All right. All right, we're live. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to day two of our Java backend development workshop. And I hope each and every one of you are staying safe, staying at home, and are learning from us. And am I clearly audible to each and every one of you? Can I get a yes in the comments? All right. All right. So, yes, I am clearly audible. Okay. So, now's the time to call your friends up and invite them to this workshop. Yeah. We'll just wait for a while for people to join. So, okay, till more people are coming, let me give you a short recap of the yesterday's session. All right. So this was so we had a super informative session yesterday, and I'm sure everyone must be excited for today's session too. So this is a short recap about of everything that was covered by Mr. Chamandeep Singh yesterday. He talked about why you should learn Java and how it can help you grow in your career. And then he talked in detail about all the Java OOPS concepts, followed by how and why Java memory management is important. And he then talked about web services and what are web services and how learning about them can help you. And finally, he talked about why using Spring Boot framework is better for Java application management. All right. And today on day two, he will be discussing with you about these concepts, about creating. He will be showing you how to create an API and then how to connect that API with a database, followed by a Q&A session, which will include all the questions that were sent by you yesterday and any and all questions that you might be giving us in the comments today. So without any further ado, I will be inviting Mr. Chamandeep Singh. Hi,
Hi,
Hi, good
hi.
evening. How are you?
Great, bro.
Yeah, okay. So let me start off by saying that I did not catch your yesterday's session,
Yes.
but I did went through it today, and that it was, let me tell you, it was super informative, and it was just a great session. Great work, great work. I
Thanks, bro.
mean, yeah, there's, and I'm sure people are pretty excited for today's session. So please take over.
Okay. So, am
Yeah.
I audible to all? Please write yes in the comment section so that I can. Am I audible to all? Please write yes or no in the chat section so that I can get the idea whether I am audible or not. Okay, okay, okay. I'm audible. So yesterday we have discussed about Java. What is a Java? Why should you use Java? Uh, okay. Why should you use Java? Then we have discussed about Java OOPS concept. Post that we have discussed about Java memory management. After discussing about Java memory management, we have discussed about why should use Spring Boot. What are the benefits which Spring Boot offers, because of which we are using a Spring Boot. Okay. So yesterday also, I have told you to. I have taught you to how you can create a Spring Boot application, right? By going on a Spring initializer, and from there, after generating a zip file, you need to unzip that file. Post that I will be going to discuss today. So this is a brief introduction about yesterday's class. Now let me share my screen once. Is my screen visible to all? Is my screen visible? Okay. I hope so. My screen is visible now. So before starting a hands-on session, let me discuss one more thing with you guys. That there is something known as Maven yesterday. In while we are initializing a Spring Boot application, right? So let us discuss briefly about a Maven. 2-3 minutes introduction only. So what is Maven? See, Maven manages the dependency and build our application. So if we are having application with us, there should be something which build our application so that we can deploy our application on the cloud or internet. So Maven, as I've said, Maven manages the dependencies, right? Now dependencies could be at three positions. Could be at three position. Either it could be locally on your platform, either it could be central, or that is being maintained by any organization, or either it could be in a repository, for example on a GitHub. So Maven could fetch dependencies from local system. When you install Maven in your system, there is a folder known as .m2 folder. In this folder, the dependencies are being stored in your local system. And in the central basically means that is it is being maintained by some organization. And if you are fetching the repository from any central source, then you need an internet connection, because some network calls will be there, right? And the third way to import dependencies is by having a personal repository there. For example, if we have having a repository at GitHub, we can fetch dependencies from there as well. Now the question comes, how these things happen. I'm going to show these things in a Spring Boot application only. Let me change my screen now. Once again. So this is a basic idea how Maven fetches, from where Maven fetches the dependencies, right? So if you are having a dependency, you should know that from where it is coming, right? Once again, let me share my other screen. Why it is not able to share the, once again. I think I have to share my entire screen. One second. In order to start. Okay, I've shown you this thing. So the basic idea of today is that we are going to build a API in which a client is going to pass some user data to us, and we are going to store that data, and then a client can ask us to update the data or delete the data, and also client can make a query to data, so that there is a need to pass the data to the client as well. So we are going to build this kind of API, a very basic API in which user passes the data or can fetch the data as well. I think so that I'm not able to share my IntelliJ screen over here. I don't know why I'm not able to share. Okay, one second. Let me share this over here. Is my screen visible? I'm not able to conclude even whether my screen is visible to you guys or not. Okay, as I can see, my screen is visible to you guys. Okay, so let's just start. Now this is a IntelliJ where we are going to have a hands-on session today. Now I have unzipped the downloaded file which I have downloaded yesterday. So after unzipping the file, you have to do, first of all, you have to go to the file option, then new, file, new, and project from existing sources. After going there, you need to search for the unzipped file. For me, it's here. And in the unzipped file, you need to select it pom.xml. After selecting pom.xml, just click on the OK. Wait for a while. Let us open it in a new window. Okay. So we are having a pom.xml file over here. In pom.xml, we are having all the dependencies which we have imported yesterday. I've shown you how you can import the dependencies, right? So as I have discussed with you guys that we can have dependencies in a local system. For example, this is a dependency in a local system. If the dependency is not present in a local system, then from where we are going to get the dependencies? From these sources. Okay, from these sources we are going to fetch the dependencies if it is not present in a local system. And if we want to fetch dependencies from any repository, then we can write a repository tag over here. Okay, let me do one thing. We will going to do it later. First of all, after loading the project from existing sources. Oh, it is still loading. Just wait for a while. After loading it, just go to the build and build this project. It will gonna take some time. Let it finish first. Till the time it's going to build, let us discuss few questions if you are having. You can ask question if you are having any questions. Till now, till the time it's building. Yes, I am going. I am going to cover a mapping thing. Yes. Any questions? Maven and Gradle are different kinds of build tool. You need to know this much only. And we are going to use a Maven. You can use Gradle as well. It's also a build tool. If you know about Node.js, then Maven is analogous to npm. Okay, let me check if it's builded or not. Yes, it's done, and now I can share screen now. Okay, I'm going to take these questions after discussing this API part, and then I'll answer all your questions. Okay, or in Python. Okay, let me share my screen. I need to share my entire screen only. Fine. So after building your application will look something like this, and the pom.xml file will go over here, and in the pom.xml we are going to have a dependencies, and here the Java version is mentioned which we are going to use. For me it's 11. And if you want to load a dependency, okay, now it's working fine. If you want to load a dependency from a personal repository, you can have a repository tag over here. Okay, it's as simple as that. And you can close the repository tag. But just a brief idea that what you have to do, and over here you can mention the URL of the repository which you are going to use. For the time being, now we are not going to use this repository tag. Okay, now After building application, our application will look something like this. Wait 1 second. And then we have to go to this location. Here is our application. If we run our application, if we have built our application and just simply run our application without doing anything, I just want to show how the application runs, and it will be going to run on the port 8080, localhost 8080. So this is how application will gonna look after it's successfully built and start running. Let me share over here, and the local, if we try to localhost 8080, and if we try to hit this local 8080, currently it is giving white label error. So nothing is there, no mapping is there. Okay. Now, what our task is to build a REST API which is going to store a data which is being passed by the client. So how to get a request which is being passed by the client? So we need some mapping in our application and all those things, right? So before starting, we need to understand Spring MVC architecture. What is a Spring MVC architecture? MVC stands for model, view, and controller. In the model section, we are going to store our business logic. Whatever our business logic is, that is being going to be in the model section. And in the controller section, we are going to have all the mappings like get mapping, pause mapping, and all the mappings which we are having in our application or a REST API. Why? And one more thing. Now we are having a controller and models. In models, we are having a business logic, and in the controller, we are having a mappings. Now there are few more tasks which need to be performed, right? So do we mention all those tasks in a controller itself? The answer is no. Why we don't mention the task in the controller section only? Because we try to keep a controller as much as light is possible, because sorry, in order to keep the latency low. Okay. If we want that a application can receive the large amount of requests which are being passed by the clients, then we need to keep our controller light. And if we want to keep our controller light, then we need to have some other layers between them, right? So let me make the layers first. How we are going to make a layers? By having a packages in our application. First, let us stop this application. Okay. So now we are going to create some layers, packages in the form of packages. The first one is controller. The second one is model, which I have discussed with you guys. And third layer is, now controller is receiving the request. Now there must be some service layer which is going to serve the request which is being received by the controller, right? So let us make a service layer as well. It is a service layer. And now we are having a service layer with us. Now service layer will be going to get a request from the controller and perform some operations which we want. Now in case we want to store the data which we have received from the client, then we need to have a repository layer over here as well. So we are going to have a repository layer over here. Now we are having a repository layer, service layer, model layer, and controller layer. Any idea? Do we need any other layers? You can write in the comment section. Okay, we will be going to build layers if required in the on the go only. So first of all, I'm going to have a first we will be going to build a simple REST API which is going to get a request from the user and store the data in the form of hash map only in our application. No, we are not connecting our application with the MySQL server. Okay, 1 second. Let me check the dependencies whether they have. Okay. Oh, we are not having one dependency which is known as JPA dependency. Let me have the dependency over here as well. We can have the dependency for my second application. Let me copy the other dependency, because for timing now, let us just ignore the dependency. Okay. So we are going to store data in our application, and in our the data which we are getting from a user is going to have a name of the user. Let us create a new class. So we are going to have a user class over here. So what all are the properties which this user is going to have? The first one is uh, user is going to have a name. So name will be going in the form of string, and let us mark it as private. What else the user will going to have? Or user will be going to have a email with him, and any other thing. Private. Let us have a contact number as well. Contact number. Okay. So user will be going to have these three properties over here. Now, since we have made these properties as private, now we need to have some function method, some functions over here, which is going to initialize these properties and change the value of these properties if required. So how we can do so? By having a getter and setter over here. How we can have a getter and setter over here? By selecting this and in this. So Spring is a smart app software. Then it can do many things on its own. Like I have done here, I have simply created a getter and setter using a alt insert statement. After I am having all these methods over here, what I have to do? Oh yes, we can do one more thing. Instead of having all these getter and setter over there, we can use one dependency which is known as Lombok. You might have remembered that I have also used one dependency known as Lombok in our application. And it is, one second, let me check the dependency. It's here. So since we are using this dependency, that basically means that in our application, we don't need to have write these in our class. We can simply use the annotation getter and setter. So this is a benefit of aspect-oriented programming. Okay, so it will gonna automatically include getter and setter in our application. So we can avoid having these now. So the model will be going to look something like this. And now, how we are going to receive a request from the client? By having a mapping in our application. And mapping could be of two types. Either it could be a REST controller type, or it could be a simple controller type. Now, what is the difference between these two mappings? Let me create a controller first. A user controller. In a user controller, we first of all, let me create a mapping over here. First mapping is a post mapping. Post mapping basically means the user will be going to pass a client to us, and we are going to store that client in our application. Okay, so user will be going to say save this user, right? Something like this. Save user. And we are going to have, for timing now, let us have a word as a return type over here. Save user. Now, this is a mapping which could be created. Now, if a user use a post method and make a request to our application and have a URL with this at the endpoint, then it will be going to come over here. I have said you that we can have two types of controller. Either it could be REST controller or it could be a simple controller. Now, what is the difference between these two? When we declare our controller as a simple controller, that basically means that our when the client is going to make a request to our application, then from our application we are giving a HTML page in response. And if we are going to use a REST controller, then it basically means that we are going to return a data in response. Okay, so this is the main difference between a simple controller and a REST controller, and this is a post mapping over here. Now, if we return a since we are getting something from the user, so we need to store the request body. The client will be going to mention user details in a request body, and in the request body, in which format it will be going to pass data. It will be going to pass a data in the form of JSON file. Now we are having a JSON. We are receiving a JSON file from the client. How we can receive the JSON file over here? The question is that. So since Spring is a smart application, we can have one more layer over here, that is a DTO layer. I'll be going to explain what is the purpose of this DTO layer. Oh, sorry, I have created a class DTO. I need to create a package for DTO. New package. DTO stands for data transfer object. It will be going to have all the classes which are being passed by the client to us. So in this we are going to have now we are receiving a JSON file from the client. Now we need to convert that JSON file into a Java object, right? So how it will be going to happen? Now Spring is a smart application. It will convert the JSON file into data as if we mention some data type over here. Data type that basically means if I am having, you will going to understand if I'll show you. So suppose I'm having a user DTO over here. User DTO over. Now it will be going to specify what all properties I'm going to get from the user. I'm going to get again. I'm going to get a name. I will be going to get is my screen visible to all? HTML response is all which IOC container you are using. Application context. Application context. HTML response didn't get any difference. I'm going to answer all your queries at the end of this session. Okay. And I'm not able to view your comments when I'm coding. So just keep that thing in your mind. Private string. I'm going to get an email over here. What else I'm going to get? I'm going to get a contact number as well. Contact number. So if I'm going to get these three properties from the client in the form of JSON file. Now, if I mention this, one second, let me mark getter and setter over here as well, because all these are private variables. Okay, so if in my controller, if I'm going to use this user DTO class as user DTO, now Spring will automatically convert that JSON file into this user DTO class and give us the instance of that class in the user DTO. Now I am having a user DTO with us, which is having three properties: name, email, and contact number. Now some of you might have the question that I'm having a user DTO over here and I'm having a user over here. Both of these look same, right? So what's the purpose of having a DTO layer, right? So if both of these are same, we can create an object of user as well. So the purpose of having a user DTO over here is that we want to decouple the object which we are creating from the client to the object which we are storing in our application, because the object which we are getting from the client can have some less or more properties. Suppose it is having three properties, and in our application we are by manipulating those three properties, we are going to build another new property known as fourth property. Then if we want to store that property in our application, now a user model and a DTO model is same. Both of these are going to have three properties. Now in case we want to have a fourth property, we can mention that property over here, which we are going to build by manipulating the data which we have received from the client. So that is the reason why we use DTO, separate DTO layer and user layer. Now I'm having a user DTO object over here. Now, as I said, our role is to keep this controller layer as much as light possible, right? So our controller layer will be going to pass the object to some other layer. To which layer? To this service layer. In the service layer, we are going to get this user DTO, which is being passed by the controller. And if we are receiving the user DTO over here, so keep one thing in your mind. I generally prefer to keep the name of uh, a class, sorry, not a class, one second, user service. First, let me create this, then I'll tell you what I'm trying to say. In our class, I try to keep the naming convention same. If we are having a same user method over here, I'm going to create a same method in the user service also. Oh, let me change its name first. It's user. We're going to user service. Now in our user service, as I've said that I'm going to keep the name same, public, void, save user. It's a good practices kind of thing. So if we are having a save user over here, now what it will be going to receive? It will be going to receive a user DTO over here. DTO, user DTO over here. And who is going to pass this to this user service? This method will be going to pass it to the user service. In order to pass it to the user service, first of all, we need to connect this user controller with that service layer, right? So how we are going to connect both of these? We can connect it in this way. User service. Now here we are going to use dependency injection. Now it is a kind of dependency. Now I want to inject the dependency in over here. As I've said you that we are not going to create an object or instance of many classes in our application. So when I have created my application, or I'm going to run this application, the object of this class will be automatically created. Now, how the object of this class will be automatically created? We need to annotate it with the service annotation. Yesterday, I have told you that application context will be going to have the classes instantiated with which are having at the rate component as the annotation. Now, I'm marking this it as at the service annotation. Now, when we go in the service annotation, it is going to have this component. If the at that service is going to have the annotation as at the rate component, then it basically means that it is also having at the rate annotation at the rate component annotation. Okay. So when we are going to run an application, the object of this class will be created automatically, and we are going to inject that object over here. Now we are having an object of user service over here. Now how we can pass it to the user service? By writing user service dot save user DT. I have passed my object over here to this user service. Now what the user service will be going to do? User service will be going to call the repository, because currently we are not manipulating any data, right? If we are manipulating our data, then we do such things over here. Currently we are not going to manipulate the data. So what we are going to do, we are simply going to say, okay, repository, save this user. Okay, So what we are going to do? Huh. One thing which we can do over here is we can create this user object, because currently we are having a user DTO and we want to save the object of user. So that thing we can have over here. First of all, let me have an object of repository over here. Oh, my bad. I have named it wrongly. Let me create a repository class as well. Now, remember one thing, we always code over the interface. First we create an interface, then we create an implementation of that interface. And why we do so? Because many times it happens that different organization will be going to implement a repository in different fashion. Okay, so that's why first we create an interface. We declares, one second, user repository, user repository. Now, why we have created this interface? In order to define the functions which this repository will be going to have. So currently we are going to save the user only, and how we can do so? By writing this method public. By default all the methods are private in this, properties are private in this interface. By writing a method public, I've said properties are private. Okay, methods are not private. Public. Now it's our need that whether we want to return anything from this repository after storing a data or not. Let us return the user only from here, and the function name is, but we can name the function. If yes, store user, store the user which I have passed to you. Import the class, store the user which I have passed to you, and I am going to pass object of type user to you. Now we are having one function in this interface, and we are going to implement this interface over here only. So let me implement this interface, user repository implementation. So here is the implementation of that implements, which it is going to implement user repository. If we are implementing it, then we need to override the methods which are present over there. Okay, so if we are overriding the methods over here, then it's fine. Now from here in the user service, I'm going to call this user service implementation, user repository implementation, user, in order to save our data. Service user repository, and let me inject it over here. Now I have injected the user. Again, why it's giving? Oh, I have not annotated this class. Let me annotate it with the repository annotation. Why I have annotated it with the repository? Because the same reason as I have mentioned in the service layer, it is also having the component annotation over here. That's why I have mentioned a repository. Now when I mentioned that over here, now that is gone. Now I can use the object here. So what I am going to do, user repository will be going to save. Now can I pass the user over here? No, I cannot pass the user over here. So how I can do so? First of all, I need to create a user. I've said to you that if we want to create some objects, we can create. But if we want Spring Boot to create objects of our classes, then we simply annotate it with the component annotation. So currently I have not annotated it with anything. So I need to create an object by myself. User users is equals to new. In this way we create Now we are having a user with us. We need to set name, and the name will be similar to the user dto dot get name. After having this, user dot set email, user dto dot uh, sorry, get email. And in the same way, we are going to set uh, contact number dot get contact number. Sorry, my bad. Get contact. Now I am writing these things again. One second. What is the error over here? Okay. In the user DTO, I have mentioned it as string. It should be long. Now it's gone. Now how can we avoid these things over here? By making a custom constructor over here. By having a constructor with having all these three properties. If we are having this kind of constructor in application, then we can simply create an object in this way. User dot. We can mention all these things over here. User dot get name. Second thing is user dot get detail, and the third one is contact number. Now I've created the object in a single line only, and we are going to pass this user to the save. Oh, sorry, store user. So now it's done, and it will be going to return this user to me only, and I will be going to return this from here as well. One second, why it's giving because I have written this thing over here, and in the same way I have to pass this. I'll tell you how we can manipulate the response which we get from a user service in the controller only. Just wait for a while. Till now we have created a user object in our class. Now we need to save this in our application. And how we can save this? We have said user repository to store this user and user service implementation. Over here, now we are having a user with me. Currently, we are going to see, we can create a hash map in order to store this user, but that's a kind of waste of time. If I tell you that how we are going to create a hash map over here, then we can store a data in that hash map. Instead, in order to save the time, what we can do, we can connect a db with the application and directly store the user in my db, right? So I think so that will save our time. Or we can have a hash map implementation over here, and we can change this as per our need when we require. So our hash map will be going to store object corresponding to the email. Okay, it will be going to store something like this. So it is db for now, new hash map. Now we can store our user in this hash map by simply writing db dot put user dot get email and user. In this way, we can store our result in our application. And if we want to return a result from here, then we can do so. If we are returning something from here, and this is not going to give anything to me in return. So now I've stored the result in application. Now what I should do, user, what I should do, db dot get, what is the e user dot get email. So it's a kind of redundant step that we are doing. We can simply return this user as well, but for a timing now, let us do so. Okay, we have returned the user from the here, which is being stored in our hash map, or we should say db. Now we are having that user over here as well, and we will be going to pass this user over here. Okay, for timing now, Let me write a user over here. Our application will be going to return this one. Let us try to run this application once, and if we face any error, then we'll see what are the error and how we can rectify those errors. Currently we are having only one mapping, save user mapping, and if it is being successfully if we are able to store the user which is being passed by the client, then it will be going to return that user only, else it will be going to return a error to the in response. One second. Okay, so our application is running fine. Let me open Postman in order to test this API. So we can simply test this over there as well. Postman is a great tool in order to test any APIs. If you make any API, I generally recommend that use Postman in order to test. Uh, why it's taking so long? Let me close my other application. It's opening. Just wait for a while. And our application is running on the port 8080. Okay. So now if I make a post request to save user, oh, I named this same. Okay, so I'm having a user over here, email over here, and along with this, I'm also having the contact number, right? Contact number over here, and the contact number I'm going to store one number, random number, and something like this. And let us try to make a request. See, we are successfully able to store a result in our application. And if we want to test whether we are able to successfully store the result in our application, what we can do, we can just try to print this hash map over here. After storing, just print this hash map, that we can check whether the it's working fine or not, whether it's working in the way we want or not. Okay, let us try to hit the DB once again with the name Chaman. Okay, so it's successfully give the result, and in our DB, oh, it's not printing anything. Sliced. Okay, okay, disable. ठीक है. Oh, I need to rerun the application because I have changed my application. My bad. It's working fine. Let us try to hit my DB once now. Okay, it's fine. And you can see that some object is printing over here. It is an object which is being stored in my DB. Okay. So this is how we can make a simple application where we are storing a data in our hash map. But in case if we want to store our data in a MySQL DB, right? So now, if we want to store our data in a MySQL, then what you have to do? First of all, you need to create a database in your MySQL application, and I'm having a Spring user. I'm going to use this DB only. Let me remove all the tables which I am having over here. Why it's not showing the 1 second. These are the tables and drop table. So currently I'm having no tables in this user database. Okay, and with the help of my application, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect my application to this DB, and after connecting my application to the DB, I'm going to store the user which I'm storing over here in my DB only. And how the tables are created in the DB, I'm going to tell you that thing also. So let me do that first. Let me In order to connect our application to the database, we need to set some properties over here. So the first property is spring dot data source data source dot url, and over here the url will be something like jdbc dot mysql jdbc mysql jdbc this as we use http in our request which we make uh, in the simple URL calling. While we call any URL on the internet, we use HTTP as a protocol, and when we are going to connect our database application to a database, then JDBC is the protocol. Okay. So localhost. Let me copy the address from here. Localhost 8080. Where application is running? Where on which port application is running? Our application 303, I think so that application runs on a port. Server status, it's running on 3306. Okay, so we need to write 3306 over here, and the database name is user. Fine. So this is a URL which we need to mention over here. If you are using a Postgres, then you can mention Postgres over here. Now the password and username of DB, the username is root, and data source password. Here you can mention your password. Spring.ddl. Second, this one, and we are going to set it as update. Or we can initially, if you are doing so, then you can mention it as create. Now you are able to get what is the username, what is a password, sorry, and what is the URL. This is quite simple task. But what is this? What is this JPA create DDL? What is this? This basically means if you want to create a table, whenever you run your application, you want to create a fresh table in a database, then you mention create over here. And if you want to update the existing table in a database, then you mention update over here. Now I have explained you two of these now, and I think you can Google out all the other ones that create drop. What are the create drop? We are going to use create over here. Now I have set all the properties over here. 1 second, let me set my set password. I'll stop sharing the screen. Are you having any doubt till now? One second, let me mention my password over here. Okay. Now application properties are done. Let me share my screen once again. Oh, it's look great. Once again, oh, it's fine. So now I have set the properties. Now our application is connected to the. Wait one second. Let me stop this. I have connected my application with the database. Now, in order to store the object which we have received from the client to the in the database, we need to create a table in the database. Right now, how we can create a table in the database? See, since we are using a JPA dependency in our application, now what does JPA do? JPA will be going to map our models with the tables. Now, if I am having this user over here, then it will be going to create a user table in our database. And with the name, if I'm having, for example, if I'm having a name as user table, if I'm having this name over here, then in my database, I'm going to have a table with the name user underscore table. And because MySQL won't don't support this camel case structure, that is the only reason. Now we know that this our model will be going to map to the table in the database. Now, how will it be? How will it be going to actually happen? Because we have not changed anything in our application. We have simply connected our application with the database. In order to change, so we write entity over here. When we write one second, entity annotation over here. Oh, sorry. I have not imported JPA dependency in order to get the JPA dependency. Uh, okay. Now I'll tell you how you can get a dependency if you have not initialized it at the time of Spring application initialization. Now I'm going to use a JPA dependency, but I haven't mentioned that dependency in my pom.xml file, right? So how to get that? Let me get a JPA dependency over here. JPA dependency. And if we want to have a JPA dependency, just go to this link, Hibernate JPA API. From here, you can select the JPA dependency. One second. One second, it's taking time. JPA dependency. Actually, from there you can get a JPA dependency, or in case you want any other dependency, you can get that from here. But for me, it's taking some time. Let me uh, use a shortcut in order to import JPA dependency. Let me copy this from here. Now I am having JPA dependency in my application. I mentioned JP dependency over here. Now just let me refresh our dependency, because if I mentioned any dependency, now my application is going to fetch the files which are related to these dependencies. And where in our application those files go? It went into these library. You can see all the dependency which has been imported in my application. All these are the dependencies. Oh, sorry, files which these dependencies are importing. So once it's done, then we are good to go. Great, it's done now. Let me check whether now it's working fine or not. See, now it's working fine since I have used a JPA dependency in my application. If I have marked, one second, why it's giving an error. Oh, sorry. Okay. Now since I've used this annotation over here, now it will be going to map my user model with the table in the database. In case you want to change the name in the database, then you can use the table annotation and provide the name over here. Webinar users. Let us name it as webinar users. Okay, in my table will be having a table with name webinar users. And okay, now why it's giving an error? Because we always have the unique primary key in the table, right? So in order to have a primary key in the table, what we are going to use, we are going to use id annotation. Now with which thing use we want this id to be there? Unique id. If I mark this id annotation with the name, then this name will be going to become a primary key in the my table. But I don't want so, because name could be same. So let me make a private int id over here, and at the rate generated value. Let me now what I'm doing, I'm generating this value automatically, that whenever an application is going to run, and whenever the instance of this object user object is going to be created, the id will be initialized automatically. One second, generation value, generation type. One second, what we are going to use. So I just generation strategy. I think so. It is named as generation strategy. Strategy. Ah, name it is there in application. Once again, generation type, generation. Okay. Oh, sorry. I was right. It is strategy. Strategy. Strategy generation dot. You can for timing now. You can see this over the Google as well. It is not a big deal. It's a syntax only. Okay. So I'm going to mention over here generation. Which type of generation we are going to use? Generation dot type dot identity. Generation type dot identity. We are going to use such kind of strategy in application. Oh, why it's not taking this strategy? I think so. It is not importing a correct class. One second. You guys can see this over the internet. I know that it is of generation, but currently it is not accepting the generation strategy. Generation type dot identity. Generated value same. Why it's giving an error? You guys can see over the internet. It's not a big deal. That it is a function which is being used to generate a value automatically. Since it's not working for a time being. Now let us remove this from here, and we are going to pass the id by ourselves. And how we are going to pass the id now? We can create a simple fix for a time being now. In our application, what we are going to do, we are going to pass id by ourselves. So how we can do so? And id, we can have a parameter over here, and over here we will going to pass ids. Let us have int count over here, which is 0, and id will be going to count plus plus. So in this way we can have the id which is going to be unique in our application, because count is going to be increase only whenever this object is going to be created. So we are having this thing over here. One more thing which we have forgot, that if now what is the error it is having? Oh, now see, if we are having a parameterized constructor over here, and when our application is going to run, since it is there is a need to map this to the table. So how JPA do so? JPA use a default constructor. So we should be having a default constructor over here as well. Default constructor. We are not going to select anything over here. What we are going to do, we will simply remove this from here. So this is a default constructor. Now the error is gone. Now our model is ready. Okay. And if we want to store anything in this model, so we need to modify our repository also. How we can modify this? It will be going to extend JPA repository. Now, what is this T and ID? T is the type which this class will be going to store. So their type is of the model type, and what is the ID? ID is of type the primary key we are having in our application. So for the time being now, the ID is integer. This is the way how we can have extend the application. Now, few things to be considered. The first thing is, if we are storing the data in the database, then we are using a JPA repository. Now, JPA repository provides some methods by default, like save method, find all method, and all these methods. So we can use these methods only, and there is no need to provide an implementation of this class. In case we are providing the implementation, then we need to have one second, let me show you what is the problem if we are going to implement our JPA repository. So this is the problem, that we need to write all the functions we are having over here in the JPA repository. We need to override that function. So in order to avoid this difficulty, we generally want create implementation of this user repository if we are storing the data in the database. One second, let me delete this from here. Delete anyways. Now, some of you might say that if we are not going to create an instance of this user repository, then how we are going to use this? Because till now we know that we can use any class by creating an instance only, right? We cannot create an instance of this interface. So in order to create an instance of this interface, we need to have an implementation. But see, when we are using a JPA repository have implementation of its own. So there is no need to write your implementation over here. It will be going to use the implementation of JPA repository. So no error will be going to come over here. We can simply use this user repository over here. Okay. So this is a difference which we should keep in our mind when we are using a JPA repository. Now, we are going for a time, let me show you how we do so. If we want to save anything in the, we can use a simple method of save. This method is being provided by the JPA repository to us. If we are using so, this will be going to save my user in the table. there will be no error. But if we want to have a custom query, suppose I want to find a user in the database which is having this name and that particular email ID. Now, how will I perform such a queries, right? So, in order to perform such a queries, we can JPA provides us this functionality that we can write functions like this find by. We can use this find by clause. If you're using this find by clause, then we can write multiple things over here. If we want an email over here, we can select email, and if we want some other thing, just if we want to attach a name over here, we can write a name over here. And so if we are using an email and name over here, then we need to pass that things also, right? So string email and string name. String name. So if we pass a string and name over here, and if we are going to use this function, and it will be going to return the user in the database with this name and this email. So second type is this. Either we can use a default functions which is being provided by JPA repository, or we can use this find by clause in our application. And a third way is to, if we want a complex query, if we want to perform a complex query on the data being stored in the database, then we can use this query annotation. So, and in this query, we can write our custom query, whatever the query you are willing to have. And it will be going to perform such a query on the database. So these are the three ways we can perform some different queries on the database. For the timing now, I think so. Application is running, working fine. Let us try to run our application once so that we can conclude that, okay, whether it's working fine or not. I hope so. You get a basic idea that how we connect our database to our application and what are the various things which we keep in our mind when we connect our application to the database. I recommend you guys that do watch this video again if in case you have any doubt. Okay. No embedded data stored configuration application phase to start. One second. Oh, my bad. One second. Let me correct some application properties. I'll inform you that what is the problem in application properties. One second. Let me stop the screen share so that I can hide my password. In the application properties, I have mentioned the URL in the wrong way. That is the main reason. Okay, now it's working fine. Okay, let me check it also. Okay, it's working fine. Let me share my screen now. I'll tell you the reason that I have written jdbc.mysql, and what I have to write jdbc colon. So that is the problem which I have created in my application. Let me share my screen once again. One second, you will get an idea what I am saying and why I am saying so. While he's not working out, few glitches, comment and let. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Let me check whether it's. Okay, so my screen is shared properly. Since I have tried to run the application, now let me do one thing. Let me drop this table once again so that you can get an idea why such things are happening and how the things are happening. Now, so now there is no table in our database. And if we try to rerun our application, as we can see that our application is being started, and we can see in our database. If we try to refresh our database, now we are having a table with a Java webinar, and a Java webinar we are having a columns with the name, ID, contact number, email, and name. So we are going to have the columns similar to the properties which we are having in a model. I hope so you get an idea why, how we are going to create a tables in the database. Now let us try to hit this API once again. I'm going to pass this over here. I think so API should remain same, and it should work fine also. Okay, so our data is something like this, and let us try to view in our database whether any row is being created or not. As you guys can see, the row is being created successfully in the database as well. So this is the way how we can create an API in order to store the data which is being passed by the client in the database. So this is the main agenda of this webinar, that I can show you the basic flow of Spring Boot application, and you can get a basic idea how the things are working. And in our Spring Boot course, we covered all these things in a depth, like what is a REST controller and what is this annotation. Currently, we are not having so much of time that we can discuss these small things. So this is the reason that we have not discussed this thing. But in our Geeks for Geeks course, we cover all these things in a depth. If we are discussing about REST APIs, then 3 hours are dedicated to this thing only. Okay, so that you can get an in-depth idea about what is these things and how the things are working. So this is all from my side in order to show you how the Spring Boot application is working. In case if anyone is having any doubt, you can guys can ask, and I'll try to answer all the queries which you guys are having today and yesterday. So let us start that thing now so that we won't waste much time. I hope so. You guys get. Am I not audible? Am I audible to guys? Now the time to. Oh, okay.
All right, that was great. That was a great session, Chamandeep. Great work.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm pretty sure many viewers will be coming back again and again to watch the video to learn more and more. So yeah, guys, now's your time to ask the questions, ask all your doubts.
Okay. So I'm having a list of questions which user have asked yesterday. First, I'll try to answer those questions. Then I'll take a question from the comment section. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So let me take the first question which users have asked. One second. How to get a professional skill in Java? Simple step for it, as I'm fourth here. See, if you want to be professional in Java, then just start learning. Because if you won't start learning, then how would you become a professional? Because development is a skill that you gain with the time. It cannot happen that you dedicate a 1 day to the Java and then the next day you say that okay, I know web development in Java. So no such things are going to happen. So just try to learn step by step. So this is a simple answer if you want to gain some skills. And the other question is how to get started with. This question is by Banerjee Sambangi, if I'm pronouncing your name correct. So how to get started with Java backend? What are the free resources? There are a lot of free resources, as I've yesterday mentioned yesterday, that we use Java just because of this thing only, that we have a lot of resources out there. So if we stuck anywhere, we are not going to face any issues in our that thing. And the other part of the question is enough to focus on DSA or both? See, if you before February, before this Corona thing happened, if you are excellent in DSA, then you can get a job in MNCs which focuses on DSA. But seeing the time which we are going through now, knowing DSA is not sufficient. Each and every company is asking for development, whether you are having any experience in development or not. If you are not having experience in development, then you are able to pass one half of the interview. But in the second half of the interview, you are going to get a red flag because you won't know the web development. So web development is equally important to the DSA in current scenario. Through the Java in any company, there are a lot of openings for Java development in a company. So no doubt in that thing. After completing, most of the people have asked general questions like framework to use. What is the best approach? So, if this question is by Shivam, he is asking what is the best approach to decouple backend and frontend so that it would take minimal change to support and any enhancement. See, when we are developing application in a backend, what we are doing, we are making controllers for the front end application. If the request is being made by the front end, if you're making an Ajax call from the front end and to REST APIs, then what is the thing which is connected between them? You are making a call from the front end and back end is responding to that call. So it is decoupled only if you are doing a development in such a way that it is already decoupled. No need to tackle that thing. So right now, screen. This is a question by Anbarasan. How we can create a object of class B which extends class A. Okay, so there is a parent class A and class B is extending that class A. Which constructor it will use, whether it's A constructor or it's B constructor. When you are going to make an object of class B, then first of all the constructor of class B is being called, and class B is going to call the constructor of its parent class also. So the constructor of both the classes are going to be called one by one. First, the one which is going to be called is of class B, then of class A. Okay, so this is the answer to this question. Now the other one is interface. Okay. Okay. So this is a question by Savan Kumar. He is trying to ask why we use interfaces when we are already having abstract classes, because of both of them are going to have a same functionality, right? So there is an abstract class which is going to have some functions which, if someone is implementing or extending the abstract class, then they need to implement those functions. Then what is the need of having an interface? See, abstract classes we can have a functionality of few functions, while in the interface we are not going to have a functionality of any method in the interface. So this is the main difference why we are using an abstract and interface. If we want to have a class which have some functions which you want other to define as per their need, but you want some functions which you want which are defined earlier only, so you don't want other to change those functions. When such scenario happens, then you choose the abstract class. And when the situation arises, when the situation arises in the case when you just need to specify the one second when, I'm coming back in a moment.
All right, guys. While he's coming back, oh, he's back already. Okay, continue, please.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Where we are? We are at the question. So I think so you get an idea why you use interface and abstract classes. When we don't want to have functionality of if even a single function, then we use interfaces, and we want when we want to have a functionality of few functions, then we use abstract classes. So this is the main difference between these two. Uh, it is a kind of important question, but no one focus on this question. Deepro have asked to he is asking how to read effectively the documentation of the developer documentation. So we are having a spring dot documentation of many things in on the Google out there. So as per me, you should go in a DFS fashion. Don't go in the BFS fashion, because when you are going to read a documentation of any thing, then lot of things are there which you might want know. If you start googling out those things which might want know, then it will lead to a disappointment only, because there is a vast things which you should know then. So as per me, first of all, just try to go through the documentation. If you want know some things, just mark those things and write it down somewhere else, and just try to go through the documentation which you are willing to read first. So just go in the DFS fashion instead of going in the BFS fashion. I am interested but not doing coding is not for me. The next question is, isn't any tendance most of the questions are irrelevant questions. To make this, I have explained this question that what is a string MVC and why the string classes are nested. I hope the person who have asked got the answer. The Satyam Pandey have asked the question: how immutable strings are useful? See, why we declare strings as immutable? Because when you declare, suppose, for example, let us consider an example. There is a one variable a, which is having a string abc. Then we are having another variable with the name b. It is also having a string named as abc. Now what happens in the memory? In the heap, only one object of string is being created with the name abc. So in order to prevent all these things, the string are created immutable, so that memory can be so that strings should be memory efficient. So in order to keep memory low, the strings are declared as immutables. uh, on a chance. So one person have Naima Tabassum have asked the question: difference between platform dependent and independent programming languages. You can Google out this thing. That C is a platform dependent language, C and C++, and Java is a platform independent application, because Java runs on JVM, while C runs on the compiler which is being installed in a system. So you can go and read more about this thing if you want to know. So this is a basic answer. Java, if you want to know the language which is platform dependent, C++. Answer is C++. How much? There is a guy named Surya who have asked this question that in a singleton class, the string s is there is a one string s which is public, but doesn't does not it defeat the purpose of singleton instance, since anyone having a reference to the instance can change the value of it, making it different for in a singleton class. What we do, we create a one only one instance, and multiple classes keep reference to same instance of singleton class, right? So if one class change any one parameter of the singleton class, then it would be changed for the other classes as well, which are having a reference to singleton class. Now this problem is known as escaping references in Java. So it is entirely a different topic, that it is a problem in Java which cannot be handled. This is a problem of Java known as escaping references. If you want to learn more about escaping references, you can Google out. There are a lot of things present out there that this is a problem in Java. In order to prevent this thing, there is a design patterns which are being used, and that design patterns even can't handle the escaping references in Java. This is a problem which need to be tackled till now. Okay, so done. I think these many questions are here. Let me check once again. Yes, these are the questions which user have asked. Now, in case you want to ask any other questions, you can write in a comment section. From where should I start learn Java and development knowledge? And please, developer sir, please. I don't have any idea from where. Saud Khan. From this is the only question which I am going to answer. See, if you want to learn a Java, then there are a lot more sources. You can take a basic course of Geeks for Geeks. There is a basic course of Geeks for Geeks out there in order to learn a Java. First, you can go through that course. Post that, you can learn a development. Trust me, the development course of Java. When I joined Geeks for Geeks, I'm impressed with the course which they are taught, because they are covering each and everything in depth. If we are having at that target annotation in our application, what is the target annotation, it is also being discussed in those lectures. So trust me, the course is going to be very helpful. I have told yesterday that what is the difference between REST APIs and SOAP APIs. You can go and watch the yesterday's lecture. Generic programming. See, there are generic classes in Java that at the when you are creating an application, you can define that if you want a data type of integer or a string. So you can create a generic classes in Java, which basically means that if you want a data type to be of as what do you say, integers, then you can declare integers as a data type. So if you are having such a situation that currently you are not knowing that which data type it should be there, then you can create a generic classes in Java. And if you want to know the structure of generic classes, then you can Google out. There are a lot of examples out there in the Geeks for Geeks. Even seeing a single example is helpful to you, Sivaram. Is there any other question? Okay. DAO layer and repository layer means same. Both of them are having the same layer. DAO basically stands for data access object, and repository is doing the same purpose in our application. So both of them are having the same uh, purpose. I think so. These are the question which use people have asked in these 2 days. I think so. Now it's done. Hey Raghav, are you there?
Hey, yes, I'm here. I'm here. All right. That was pretty informative. Excellent session. And I'm sure our viewers have learned very much from you. And I hope they'll be coming back again and again to watch this video. So, all right, any other questions from our viewers?
Ankit have asked how to see what happens exactly into the memory when the program running in the memories. See, we have to develop a software if we want to visualize what is happening in the memory. So this you need a software especially to see the thing in the memory. Else, a kind of fix is that you can write a print statement and see what is happening to a current variable which you have created, whether the memory is being allocated to that variable or not. You can write by writing a print statement. I think so, because if we want to visualize what is happening in a memory, then currently there is no software. How to understand annotations correctly? Just write at the rate annotation on the Google. You will get a response over there only. See, Aditya, currently we are not creating anything related to a Spring security. When we have created anything related to a Spring security, then we need to have this authentication thing in our application. Currently, we have not created that thing in our application. If you took Geeks for Geeks course, and it is being covered in detail that how we can use a Spring security in our application. This is entirely a different topic. Uh, uh, Currently, we want Kalpesh. We want use JDBC and JSP in today's era. We generally prefer to use a JPA. Okay, it is being outdated. That we won't prefer to use. These are being used previously when JPA was not there. Is there any other question? What do you mean by class loading in Java? Mandar, I am not able to get your question. What is in class loading in Java? Yes, yes, yes. You need to learn a JUnit Mockito. Like Mockito basically helps in such a way that if you haven't created an application, then also you can uh, give a response to the APIs. Suppose there is one front end team and one back end team. Now they have decided to make one application. Now front end team is working on some APIs. So what front end team will be going to do? It will be going to make a request to the backend, and backend will be going to return a response to the front end. Now, what happened initially when the backend team is in development? You won't have any response to give to the front end. So at that time, we mock the response. Okay. So in order to mock the response to the front end team, we use Mockito in our application. Sir, I want to learn Spring Boot from starting. I've said that Geeks for Geeks is the best course. I generally feel that that is the best course out there. Raghav can give you a walkthrough that course which we are having at the Geeks for Geeks.
Any other questions in this except of courses? All right, I think this is it for today. We don't
Yes.
have any more questions. So thank you so much, Chamandeep, for your time.
Most
And
welcome. Most welcome.
thank you. And our viewers had a great time and learned many lot of things from you. And I hope we can hear from you again and learn more from you in the next workshop
Sure.
too.
Sure. Sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Most welcome. Bye bye.
Bye. Have a great evening.
Bye.
All right. For all those of you who are still hanging around and are still with us, I am just going to give you a quick walkthrough of the Java backend workshop of the Java backend course that we offer. All right, once again, I would like to thank Mr. Chamandeep Singh for being with us and for sharing his knowledge and for a great session and for a super fun and informative session. And please do like and share the video if you like the content, and please tell us what did you like about the video, what you disliked about the video, and what more do you want from us, what kind of content do you wish to see from us. And any feedback, negative or positive, is most welcome. And thank you for being with us, and keep learning, keep growing. Have a great evening, stay safe, stay home. Thank you.